Hello to everyone, and welcome to this new lecture in Java programming. Now, our topic for today is how to implement a user input using JOptionPane in NetBeans. So let's define what is JOptionPane. So JOptionPane is a class in NetBeans which is under the Swing package. It is used to provide standard dialog boxes like what you see in different websites and software wherein there are alert messages and pop-up messages. So you can do that in Java programming using JOptionPane. And these dialog boxes are message dialog box, confirm dialog box, and input dialog box. So these dialog boxes are used to display information or get input from the user. So when we create or instantiate a JOptionPane object, you basically inherit the J component class, but you don't need to dig deeper on that because we only focused on displaying these dialog boxes. So as I've said, that JOptionPane is a class which is under the Javax that Swing package. So there are three major types of dialog boxes. So we have the message dialog, which can be invoked using the method show message dialog. And then this is used to create message dialog. It will just display a message and you can put a title on it, or if you don't want to put a title, it will just give a default title as message. And then of course you need to put a string literal as the message on it. And then the second dialog box is the confirm dialog box, which can be invoked using show confirm dialog method. So the confirm dialog box it is used to basically create a dialog box which has options yes, no, and cancel, and you can put titles or select an option. The third type of dialog box in JOptionPane is the input dialog, which can be invoked using the show input dialog method. So it is used to show a question message dialog, basically to request input from the user parent to the parent component. So it will provide a small text field wherein the user will enter it will enter a value into the input dialog box. So these are just the example output of the different types of dialog boxes. So we do have message dialog box. As you notice, the default title of message dialog box is message, and its icon is it looks like an eye, or it means it could be an information icon. You can actually change the icon into different icons basically on our message dialog box. However, I will just give you the resources for how you can change it in the description below. Next is the input dialog box. So as I mentioned earlier, the input dialog box will provide a text field wherein the user can input a value. And then take note that the input dialog box text field will just return a string. So if you want to input a number, so the input dialog box will basically return a string type value. Now, if you want to manipulate the number entered, so you can just convert it using different parsing methods. Then the third is the confirm dialog box. As I've mentioned, it will show a question or any confirmatory message, and it will provide three buttons, which is yes, no, and cancel. So we'll have an example right now. we will be creating a project in NetBeans. So you can have your own project name. So I will just call it a sample J option 1. Okay. And then I'll just delete some of the unnecessary comments. Okay, I need to change the text. I want it to be a lot larger. Okay, right. So as I mentioned that the J option dialog box is part of the package of the javax.swing. So we need to import javax.swing that J option pane in order to successfully invoke the methods that we need to display the different dialog boxes. Okay. So you don't need to instantiate an object of JOptionPane because you can just basically automatically invoke the different methods using the class name, which is basically the JOptionPane. So let's say, for example, we want to uh, display a message dialog box. So you just invoke it using the class name, which is the JOptionPane, and then you write the invoking method, which is show message dialog. And then for the component parent, you just write null. And then here is the title. So if you will not write title, so wait, I need to check. Okay, null object message. Now, if you will just put two parameters on the show message dialog, the null is the parent component, but as on this case, we don't have a parent component, so we'll just put null. And for the second parameter, you just write the message. So let's say this is a message. Okay, so let's try to run our example. As you notice, it displayed a message dialog box, okay, with a default title of message. So you can actually put the title basically. Um, so the title is after the second parameter. So the third parameter is basically the title. Let's say information. Okay. So what's the type of method? String object. Okay, and then you need to put a message type, let's say 0. So let's try for the fourth parameter. So 0 is for an X icon. Okay, so you can put, if you want to put a title, or to change the default title, you need to put also a message type. Okay, so let's try to explore the different message types. So 0 is for and let's say an error icon, and then let's try 1. 1 is a information icon, and then let's try 2. Okay, 2 is like an alert message, alert icon. It uses an alert icon. And then 3 is a question mark icon. 4, wala nang 4. So 0 is basically for error icon. And then 1 is for the information icon, I believe. Okay, yes. And then the 2 is for alert icon. And then 3 is for question mark icon. Okay. Now let's make it as a comment so that it will not be interpreted. So let's try to create another dialog box, which is a confirm dialog box. So let's try show JOptionPane that show confirm dialog. Okay, so please take note, let's go back first in the message dialog. The first parameter is the parent component. If you don't have a parent component, just put null. Null means it doesn't have any value on it, but it's not empty, but it's not readable or acceptable as a value. So you can put objects or a parameter which is not needed as null. So in this case, the parent component parameter is null. Now for the second parameter of the show message dialog is the message string. So what you want to display basically on the dialog box. And then the third parameter is the title. And then the fourth parameter is the message type. So message type 0 is a error icon, type 1 is an information icon, type 2 is an alert icon, and then type 4 is a question mark icon. So take note also that you cannot only put, if you want to change the title, you need to put, or the default title, if you want to change the default title, you need to put a type icon. Okay, number type icon. So it only ranges from 0 to 3. So we'll be creating now a show confirm dialog. So if we will just put if we will just put two parameters on the confirm dialog, it will just put two parameters. So let's try, are you sure? So let's try to run it. So our message is, are you sure? So as you notice, yes, no, and cancel. So how can we know? How can we know if we had placed? How can we know if what button did the user pressed? So we need to catch or assign it to a string type variable. But before that, let's try to explore putting a message type icon here. Okay, so pag to pala, pag to is ano siya, question mark siya, then okay and cancel lang siya. And then, let's try 0. So 0 is same. Let's try 1. So 1 message type that do have 3 what do you call this? 3 value, 3 buttons. Okay, so let's try 3. So wala. So 0, 1, 2, 3 lang. Okay, so let's try the 3. Okay, so back to our objective, which is to basically catch whatever the user pressed, yes, no, or cancel. So let's try to explore. Actually, hindi ko pa siya na-explore. So let's try to explore. Let's instantiate a string type variable str, which is an empty string. And then let's just assign the whatever returned by the whatever returned by JOptionPane. By the way, the JOptionPane show confirm dialog will return on object reference type. So let's try to put to string here. To string. Okay. Bakit pala? Okay. By the way, mali pala ako. Dapat kasi int pala to, no? Int choice. Kasi yung choice is basically, itong show confirm dialog box will return a integer. So if we'll just show it in the console, what is user so whatever the user has pressed. Okay, let's just show it in the console. So let's try on, sorry, wala palang 3. Let's try 2. So, let's check, oh, are you sure? Okay, then, so user press 0. So pag yes, wait lang. Cancel is also 0. Error siya. Try natin yung 1. Okay, so let's try 1. So if the user pressed yes, so the confirm dialog method will return 0. And then if the user pressed no, it will return 1. And then if the user press cancel, it will return 2. Okay, so those are the different how you put the different how you catch whatever the user pressed. So we'll be doing I'll be giving you an example of the okay, sana yung ano natin. Okay, I'll be giving out you example in the third type of dialog box, which is an input dialog box. So JOptionPane that show input dialog. Okay, so you can just um, you can just put one parameter. Let's say enter your name. Okay, so and then let's try. Okay, so as you notice, it will return a it will return a it will display a input dialog box. Okay, so let's try to put a message a message title. Let's say username, user info. Okay, let's try if it will show. Okay. The second parameter is basically the default value. Okay. So I will try muna. I will try to check muna. Show input dialog. So it do have na parent so kung kailangan mo mag-change ng title and then may message type, you need to put a null message, I think. Okay. So you can explore that on your own. Okay. So as you notice, it will display a dialog box. So what we need to do here is we need to catch or assign whatever the value entered by the user to a variable. So we need to instantiate and declare and initialize a string variable into a what do you call this? Into a empty string. Okay, and then str is equal to JOptionPane. So that means whatever entered by the enter your name dialog box input dialog will be stored to str. And then we will just display whatever the user entered. So we'll just display it using the print ln, and then we put the variable name str. So let's say for example, I will write my name and then I will press OK, so it will display my name. Okay, So those are an example of a how to display a J option dialog boxes. So let's go back here. This is your practice problem, so we will solve it right now. So the practice problem is you need to create a program utilizing JOptionPane, and the program must ask for the name of the user, then ask for the room temperature in Fahrenheit, and it must convert the values to Celsius by deduct 32, then multiply by 5, then divide by 9. So the program must display the name of the user and then the room temperature in 2 units, which is basically the Celsius and and then the Fahrenheit. Okay, so we will be creating a new project for this. So let's call it as temperature conversion. Temperature conversion project. Okay, we'll delete some of the unnecessary comments. So please take note again that since we need to implement a JOptionPane dialog boxes, so we need to import javax.swing. So JOptionPane. So we need to import the package javax.swing because as I mentioned earlier that JOptionPane is under the javax.swing package. And then as you notice, the class name is the same with the project name that we have created, which is temperature conversion, which is basically the same also with the file name. So right now we need to declare variables for our user input. So our user input is name first. Okay, so we will write string name and then instantiate it with an empty string. When we say empty string, as I've mentioned in our previous videos, empty string doesn't have any characters on it. Okay, but it is not null. Okay, so you can just instantiate it with a pair of double quotes. Okay, so we need to assign the JOptionPane input dialog box to the name. So of course it's an input dialog box because we need to input name. So JOptionPane that show input dialog, and then you can write null if you want, but if you don't want to change whatever icons in the default, so you can just write the message. So enter your name. Okay. So based on the problem, after entering the name, the program must ask also for the room temperature in Fahrenheit. Okay, I'll just copy this. Okay. The Fahrenheit the temperature units or values, we could implement integer type. However, most of the values in temperature is in floating type literal. So I would suggest to declare a double type variable in order to accept the fractional part of the value entered. So double temp. Okay. So temp will be stored in the J option show input dialog. So we will ask for enter room temperature in Fahrenheit. Okay. So after that, bakit may error? As I mentioned, the JOptionPane show input dialog will only return a what do you call this? Will only return string. So we can do two methods. We can provide a string input which is just a um, empty string, and then we will assign the value entered by the user for the room temperature into that empty string, and then after that we will convert or parse the variable string variable input into that double temp variable. So temp is equals to double that parse double and then the input variable, which is a string. So that means we are converting the string variable input, which has the floating type value on it, and then converting it into double data type. So that's how you do it. And then we will also need to declare um, double Celsius. Okay, so I'll just need to confirm. Sorry, I need to confirm the conversion factor. Wala, bakit wala? Okay, okay, Fahrenheit to Celsius, deduct 32, then multiply by 5, then divide by 9. Okay, that's correct. Okay, so the conversion factor is to deduct 32, then multiply by 5, and then divide by 9. So we will convert now the temperature in Fahrenheit to Celsius, basically. So Celsius is equal to, according to the conversion factor, you deduct it by 32, then multiply by 5, and then divide by 9. Okay, deduct by 32. Deduct by 32. Multiply by 5, divide by 9. Okay. So, as temp, which is basically the temperature in Fahrenheit, deduct it with 32, and then you multiply it with 5 times 5, and then divide it by 9. Okay? So that is now the formula for converting into Celsius, and then it is assigned in the Celsius variable. And then we will now display the variable, the values into a JOptionPane message dialog box. So JOptionPane that show message dialog, so null, and then name. So we need to display first the name, and then we will also display it the temperature, which is basically in Fahrenheit, and then we'll also display Celsius, which is the temperature in converted temperature into Celsius. And then let's try to run. So mark run, then okay, and then enter room temperature. Let's say this is 109.54. Okay, so it displayed your name, and then yung na-display first is yung temperature in Fahrenheit, and then na-display yung in Celsius. Okay? However, it would be better if meron siyang titles, no? So, let's put titles on it. Your name, and then your Fahrenheit na lang. Fahrenheit, and then Celsius. So, this is 1. Diba? 1 yung information, no? 1. One icon yung information. So, let's try again. So, your name. So, 98.5. So, 98.5 Fahrenheit. And then, 36.94 in Celsius. So, let's try to check. 98.5. Okay, so let's try 98.5, 36.945. So you can actually edit whatever the message you want to put. You can display, um, you can instantiate, you can actually put it in just one dialog box. However, you need to set up first the string that is needed to be placed, or to combine or concatenate the different string values. So let's declare a string message here. So this is just an optional thing you want to do. You can actually display multiple message dialog box. However, if you want to put it in a just one message dialog box, you need to set to concatenate all the values that you want to display into just one string variable. So how to do that? You will need to declare and instantiate as another string type variable into an empty string first, and then we will need to set up the message string variable. So let's say message is equal to um, name plus, so you can put slash n, which is basically new line, then uh, the temp, and then slash n, and then the Celsius. Okay, so you can actually do that. So our aim right now is to just display all the values into one message dialog. So we will place it into message, and we will delete this, remove those other two message dialog statements, and then let's try to run Celsius, ano na lang, temperature conversion. Charot. Okay, so let's try to run. So mark, and then 88.5. Para siyang radio station. Okay, so ayan, as you notice, 'di ba, Mark is our name here, and then slash n, as you notice, nag-new line siya, yung next na value, which is concatenated in the message, so which is temp. Ito yung temp, 'di ba, yung Fahrenheit na value, and then another slash n, that means printing a new line. So that means the next value or string or whatsoever will be placed on the next line, and then the Celsius. You can actually further set up your message variable, so you can actually put labels on it. Labels, your name, okay, and then for the temperature, you can write ano nga to, Fahrenheit. And then here, you will write Celsius. So what we're doing here, we are just basically putting labels preceding the values concatenated. Okay, so let's try again to run just to see the difference. So 98.5. So as you notice, meron siyang label. Your name, or what's Fahrenheit, 98.5 Celsius, etc. So you can actually do the previous one, which you display the different values into multiple dialog boxes. However, I prefer to put it in just one dialog box, especially if the result is not a lengthy presentation, just like this one. Okay, so that ends our presentation or our discussion and code demonstration on implementing JOptionPane and the different dialog boxes in Java programming using NetBeans. Thank you for listening.